Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming back again. This is Ken Shoulders number 47, and we're going to do it on teleportation, and I think this will be the first of two that we're going to talk about teleportation, and I have some really interesting information for you. But before we do that, Brendan has kind of an announcement to make here.
Okay, yeah. So basically, we're awarding Pavel Osmera the Starburst Nobel Prize for Physics. So here is, so here we'll send it to Pavel later on. So here it is here. Oopsie. Foundation, honorary doctorate of science, and the Starburst Nobel Prize for Physics. We've got
For
down here,
his
we've got down here Pavel there, and there's
excellent.
I awarded Eddie one as well. So Eddie's up here
Yeah, and John Hutchison got one
down there.
before as well too. Yeah,
Chris Beskar. So
we have.
these doctorates and professorships awarded here are valid within the Starburst Foundation and by any others who acknowledge it. So a Doctor of Science is basically a higher doctorate. And so in the UK, Australia, and New Zealand, Doctor of Science, the higher doctorate awarded for exceptional achievements and lifetime scholarly contributions.
Yeah, I fully.
This is just from the like the Da Vinci Code, sort of
Yeah,
navigate.
well, that's fantastic, Brendan. And Pavel, you absolutely deserve
We've
this.
got
And
Eddie as a connectable and a commander temporary navigator. Okay.
very cool. So yeah, later on we'll send that to Pavel. So today, yeah, we're gonna jump into a teleportation presentation that I put together. And yeah, I'll start talking, and then Chip will probably jump in and help me read a little bit of it. So the Montauk project. The reason why I brought this up is because a friend of mine, Rebecca Rose, who you're going to see an email from her in a second here that I'll read to you guys. She was actually part of the Montauk project. I believe that she was at, at around 6 years old when she was part of it, and we've had quite a few discussions about what happened to her and how they did it and whatnot. And the thing that's really important to know is that the Montauk Project is actually sort of the last in a long chain of projects that really started with Project Rainbow, when the military basically made a tank disappear using this technology. And after that, that turned into the Philadelphia experiment. And I have quite a bit of knowledge about that too, because when I was 12, my father was part of NORAD, and he took me to a movie in a movie theater, and I actually ended up watching part of the Philadelphia experiment, but the actual real thing that was filmed by the military. And Brendan, if you just move that a little bit, you'll see that this book was co-authored by Peter Moon, and I actually know Peter Moon. So partway through the presentation here, we'll share some information about Peter. So this is an email from my friend Rebecca Rose that I'll read to you guys. And this was a few years ago. Now, Rebecca was in the German secret space program. So she was part of what was called the Dark Fleet. And that was after this Montauk. She did 20 in backs. I think she did three of them, but that was later. This what we're talking about here, she was 6 years old when she was at Montauk, or around that age. And this was from May 13th of 2023 from Rebecca Rose. And the other thing about Rebecca Rose is she's a Akashic reader. She does Akashic readings and that type of thing. And she's done four Akashic readings for me, actually. And some really wild stuff came out of that that we can talk about at another time. So I'm just going to read this to you. It says, thanks for all the information, because I sent her a whole bunch of information, technical information about teleportation. I appreciate the confirmation about the SB. I think she's talking about subquantum torsion fields. And that's exactly my perception, that they open the time this way, that they open time this way, aided by a host of other technologies working together at once. And what you said about losing people in space time, exclamation marks, 100%. I know that they lost a lot of people, thousands of people. I know that's one of the reasons such care was taken with the jump gate between Dulce, New Mexico, and the moon. So when Rebecca was um, like 11, I think, around that age, she actually ran the jump gate from Dulce, New Mexico to the moon. And that's what she's talking about. And she says, since cargo could get lost, and she's meaning people essentially, and other things like cargo as well, could get lost, and they needed a child's frequency, mine and others. So she wasn't the only person that did it, but there were others, to help get the cargo safely through the gate in a repeatable way. Thanks for all of this. I'll be trying to upgrade my understanding of all this for many years. Enjoy the long light of May tonight. So that's Rebecca Rose. You can see or find Rebecca Rose on the internet at Rebecca Rose Barfoot. That's her last name, essentially. And you can book Akashic readings and whatnot with her and other things that she does. She's absolutely amazing. And I actually ended up meeting Rebecca because of Elena Denon. Rebecca Rose was on with Elena, and I was looking for someone to do Akashic readings for me, but all the people that I had seen didn't really jive with me. So basically, when I saw Elena and Rebecca together, I realized that I needed to hire Rebecca. So I actually wrote on a paper, "You're hired," essentially at that time. So now we're going to get into some of these slides that are actually from Stavati Aerospace, from David Wilcock from like 4 years ago. And basically, we're going to talk about the mechanisms, or basically how teleportation occurs. And this says all of space and time is the eminence of a single geometric form. Now, what they're talking about here is the Turing wave. So that's, something that I've talked about in the past, and we've talked about, and we will talk about more. It's the Turing wave, which is the basic building block of our universe, which when you interact with it, it allows you to do this teleportation. So yeah, we can go on to the next one. And so the atoms and molecules are constantly turning inside out. So what ends up happening with that Turing wave, which is a dodecahedron, is that when it's out, it's in space time, and then when it goes inside, or it inverts on itself, then it's in time space essentially. So that's what they're talking about, how these atoms and molecules are constantly moving essentially, and doing this motion of turning themselves inside out. Okay, then this is what we're talking about. So from space time to time space, and we're in space time, and the Turing wave actually oscillates between space time where we are and time space, which is where the non-local information is essentially. And it's really important to know that because the main building block of the universe is this Turing wave, and the Turing wave oscillates between space time, again, where we are, and time space, that in actuality, we spend half of our time in time space. So because the Turing wave goes into time space and then comes back out, and it's actually the etherons, these little toroidal structures, that create the Turing wave. They basically come out of time space into space time, create the Turing wave, then dissipate and go back into space time, and then come back again. And every time this happens, it recreates the entire universe and takes a picture of it. So basically, that is the blinking universe that everyone talks about. And when they say space to counter space, that's just another way of saying it. Essentially, we're in space, and counter space would be time space. So then we've got a wave is a particle spread out in the past, present, and future. So this is something to think about. And we also know from Pavel's theories that when everything is all of those toruses are are connected together, we have a particle, but when they spread out, now we have energy, essentially. So the next one will talk about actually how this mechanism works. It is turning inside out and becoming a particle in time space. So in time space, you actually have um, three dimensions of time and one of space, and that's basically what is being talked about. Yeah. So let's see what else it says here, Brendan.
Charles is asking, is time and space negative? The source and from the Akashic record and where Akashic record is accessed.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's non-local, so absolutely it is. And the thing that I don't talk about sometimes too is we've got this Turing wave going back and forth between time, space, and space time, but at orthogonal or at 90 degrees to that, there's this flux of energy coming in from the ether essentially. So to make it more proper when I talk about it, that's actually what is going on essentially. So, but yes, absolutely, all of the good stuff happens in time space or the non-local. So this is the basis of teleportation and time travel. When you can access time space, now you've got the access to three dimensions of time which allow you to go anywhere that you want. That's exactly how teleportation and time travel happen, essentially. Yeah. So what else we have here? Okay, yeah, the Turing wave. And this is something that I wrote on March 11th of 2024. The Turing wave is a dodecahedron standing wave pattern that inverts on itself and vibrates between space-time, three dimensions of space and one of time, and then it vibrates or it oscillates back into time space where you have three dimensions of time in one dimension of space. Everything in our universe emanates from a single point, which is the Turing wave. So again, we spend half of our time in time space, which is non-local, and that's where a lot of the magic happens again, like Charles just said essentially there. All right. Now, I think I'm going to get Chip to read through this. I might jump in every now and again, Chip, and and um, and this is information that is very vetted. This is a something that was prepared for the military, and I got it from a person who actually knows the person that wrote the paper. So that's what I'm saying. It's very vetted. I know exactly where it came from. And the reason I was given this is because it talks about the subquantum a lot. And this is a paper that was prepared for the military on teleportation. So, Chip, if you want to jump in and
Okay. There's a set of notes here. I'll try to fill in. They're in abbreviated format. This teleportation information was presented to the military, and Ed is drawing off of the information. The reason is because this information discusses the subquantum. These are quotes from the paper. There's a series of quotes. Underlying the universe is a subquantum information domain. Point one, the vacuum is teeming with information. Point two, information determines what manifests physically. Interesting. That is done via Fisher information, which equals how much information you can squeeze out of a physical system. Second point, physical, I was shown to be the difference between Fisher information from observing the phenomena and the amount of information bound up in the phenomenon being measured. Let's repeat that. Physical laws shown to be the difference between Fisher information from observing the phenomena and the amount of information bound up in the phenomena being measured. We have to measure it to see how much it is. All right. Through the very fact of observing, we actually define the physics of the thing being measured. Okay. In other words, the observer participancy gives rise to the information, and information gives rise to physics. Okay. Sub-Q, subquantum information, is non-local. Information and images can be robustly teleported. Second point, instantaneous connection across any distance. Third point, requires additional classical information for reliable transmission. Okay. Non-local entanglement is common in nature, not just a low temperature or a lab phenomenon. It's non-maximal, weak mixed state entanglement. Weak entanglements occur everywhere in the universe. Questions. Number one, how might biologic systems exploit SQ information, subquantum information? Second question, might SQ information be integral to consciousness?
I would say yes there, hey?
Okay.
Yep.
I hope everyone understands that. Next point, what sort of information structures might exist in the subquantum information space? Qualia or thought forms. That's number one. Number two, spatiotemporal SQ information structures required to interact with matter, since matter is spatiotemporal.
Temporal
Okay.
meaning time, spatio meaning space, temporal meaning time. Okay.
Yep.
Right. So they're conflating space and time here. How might SQ information be probed? Empirical data badly needed. Yeah, that's a bit of a task to experiment at that level. All right, here's a conjecture. Can biologic systems entangle with the physical world? Can intent exploit quantum entanglements to transfer information? Number two,
Again, yes. Hey, Chip, I would say absolutely yes to that one, right?
Yeah. Number two, excuse me, this would explain many anomalies, remote perception, psychokinesis, and telepathy.
Yeah. And this is something that was drawn on the paper, so I just kind of reproduced it, basically.
I was going to say
Okay.
we could ask a question to the AI whether in conventional physics has a molecule or an atom been teleported in conventional physics. It might be a good question to ask. I seem to remember. Anyway, carry on.
Interesting. All right, so we get an energy field composed of four-dimensional space-time, X, Y, Z, and T, where intent interacts with that field. Okay. Spatial temporal structure in entanglement field can have macroscopic effects. Okay. First point, might resonance effects allow projection of specific spatiotemporal SQ information structures?
Mm-hmm.
Might resonance effects allow projection of these structures? Okay, number two, synchronizing of spatiotemporal joint probability distributions in matter could cause many anomalies. All right. Synchronicities in nature, psychokinesis, thought projection, telepathy. No energy transfer. Second point.
That's really important, I think, that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're not drawing from the vacuum, we're requiring a power source of some type for this to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Would be a takeaway, maybe. Wow. Is that the end? Interesting.
Yeah, there's one more.
One more. Okay. Future work, subquantum information, intent, entanglement of biologic systems. And there's 6 points here. Quantum information theories, information being the key word there. Entanglement and decoherence. Quantum holography, entanglement in biologic systems, reg experiments,
Not sure what that
REG.
is. Yeah, I'm not sure
Yeah,
what that is.
yeah. And then
Jungian.
Jungian synchronicity probe. Yeah.
I think that's
Carl Jung, I
Carl
think.
Jung. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so thank you, Chip. That's some information that I wrote down in my notes, but these are the actual words that were on the paper essentially. And
Yeah.
Brendan, I think there's more. Um,
There's, hang on a minute. Yeah. Okay. Go on. Let's just see more on that. More on that document.
yep, yeah, I get stuff that I need to finish.
All right. Okay. Okay.
Okay, so what I wanted to talk about a little bit was my father was part of NORAD during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and he had a friend that he knew all his life. Basically, they played in the sandbox as children in Alberta, and his name was Peter Panic. And Peter Panic went on to be a brilliant physicist who worked for the U.S. government. And he worked on the teleportation project for the US government, which was known as Project Pegasus. And this is Andrew Vasiago. His father was actually the chief engineer of the teleportation project. And there's, I think, 3 or maybe 4 interviews that Dr. Sala did with Andrew Vasiago talking about Project Pegasus. Now, I've always wanted to get a hold of Andrew and haven't had any success. He's one of the only people that I've tried to, contact and have had not any success with, but I'd still like to try and talk to him at some point. In fact, maybe we'd even send him this to show him what we're talking about here. So, my father and my brother on Peter Panic's deathbed, basically, went to visit him. And because Peter was dying, I think he died within a few days of that. He basically spilled his guts. Now, I wish I was there. I wasn't there, but I did ask my brother about what he remembered, and he didn't remember very much. But my father told me that they talked all day about him working on this teleportation project. So it is something that's definitely real. You guys can check it out on the internet and whatnot as well too. So is there another? Yeah. So when I first showed you at the beginning here the book about the Montauk Project, it was co-authored by Peter Moon. And if you can, yeah, exactly. So basically, I contacted Peter Moon and we went back and forth, and he said, your question, because I asked him about the type of tube that was used, one of the tubes that was used in the electronics. And next week, we're going to go into a little bit more of the electronics and talk about that stuff. But he said, your question would be better answered by Preston Nichols, who is no longer with us. I appreciate your story. Was the documentary you saw on the Philadelphia experiment the old one from 1943 or so? There was one, and I did not know that there was one until he told me this. Or was it done, 20 years ago or so? No, it was actually footage from the real Philadelphia experiment that I remember seeing. And I can remember I think I was 12, and I can remember after it turning to my dad and saying, "Is this all real?" And he said, "Absolutely. Every single thing that they say is absolutely real in here." And he was a radar tech, so for NORAD during the Cuban Missile Crisis, so his level of electronics was extremely high. Radar is actually the highest of all the electronics when you start looking at things. So Peter Moon, I wish Al Belak is the person that I'd actually would have really loved to talk to. And Moray King, who's in our group here, told me a little while ago that he actually had met Al Bielaks.
Maury,
So
Maury King and met Arbilak, Arbilak, the one in
yeah,
the on the Eldridge to Philadelphia experiment, Bilak.
yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, Paul, didn't you tell me yesterday that you had also met him?
Yeah, yeah. I met him in Calgary at one point. He came and did a talk in Calgary. As well as Duncan Cameron, who Duncan Cameron was one of the operators of the chair. We knew him, and yeah,
Yep.
some other friends of mine were good friends with Preston Nichols too. So and
Oh my
Preston
God.
made a lot of really cool audio equipment and stuff like that. So
Is Preston Nichols the one who did documentaries on UFOs and things like that? Is that right? Or is it someone
yeah,
else?
I years ago, I think so. Yeah, he passed away quite a while ago, and Duncan passed away a couple of years ago.
Okay.
But we
Wow.
actually did a tour to Montauk with Duncan,
Ye-
and yeah,
That's
that was fun.
That's right. You were telling me that yesterday, with our
Yeah,
little call that we had there. And so next week, we're going to go into the book and read part of the book and one of the chapters. And we'll definitely get you to jump in because you've actually been there
yeah,
before, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
we were talking about this yesterday too, that most people don't understand when Project Paperclip came in and NASA was all set up, the Germans actually basically ran NASA, but the Montauk project, they ran that completely. Like, I understand that even the higher brass in the military could not even intervene with what they were doing. There was just no possible way, right?
Yeah.
And I heard, and I don't know if this is correct, but there was gold that the Nazis stole during World War II that financed the Montauk project, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Well, that's kind of how they've done it over the years. A lot of times that they took gold from certain places and funded projects like that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And we were talking before the call here, and so you were the person actually that put on the world's first attempt at the Hutchison effect a while ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah. With Bob Grenier, we did it here at the shop, and yeah, yeah, yeah. That
Well,
was pretty fun.
maybe next time, because I know you guys planning on doing it again. Maybe next time we could actually have John join you guys there or something.
Yeah. Yeah. We invited him up to come. So, and he thought about it. He definitely said, "Oh, I want to come and see your shop." So, yeah. But yeah, he's
Very,
welcome to come anytime.
that is so cool. Very, very cool.
I had a question about the Montauk. They talk about in the books about zero time. Is that the same as time space? Because they would say that they
Ooh,
would shift out of this time, space time, and then go into zero time and then pop out. That's how they did the time travel thing.
I,
So is zero time the same as time space or counter
I,
space?
I never really thought about it that way, but yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I heard the same thing basically. Yeah. That and the other thing I wanted to say, and we'll talk about this next time too, is the very, very first YouTube that's on my Technology Envoy channel is with Carmen Miller and Dr. James Schwartz.
Right.
Now, James Schwartz happens to be one of the most eminent Tesla experts on the planet because he went to Wardenclyffe with ground penetrating radar and found an Earth antenna under the ground. And I think I sent that to you. I don't know if you saw it yet, but I emailed the report to you
Okay.
yesterday
Okay.
on the ground penetrating radar. And the other thing about James Schwartz was he was a really good friend of Paul Laviolette's. In fact, when I got a hold of James, I didn't know that he knew Paul, and I inevitably told him that Paul had passed away because he didn't know that. And you can see the interview. It's the very first one with Dr. James Schwartz. James Schwartz went to Colorado with that same ground penetrating radar, and 3 feet down in the ground, he found crates.
Right. I remember hearing that. Yeah.
Ed's got cut off. I think he might come
Oh,
back. He might go out and come back in again. So it's just
About James is he's best friends with Dan Willis is another guy that I know. and Dan worked directly with Marcel Vogel,
Okay.
but also James Schwartz. And this is the part that you're going to like, Paul. James has the original frequency generator from the Philadelphia experiment, and he's been rebuilding it. And I've been talking to him about it, and it's all tubed, right?
Of course. Yeah, of
So
course.
you and I probably should be talking to him at some point more about that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Wow.
so cool. So does anybody have any more questions? I think we're done with the presentation, right, Brandon? There's no more slides, if I remember correctly.
I was just
And
thinking that Charles just put a comment in a moment ago saying, I think Nichols and Bilak mentioned the gold from the train in a French tunnel. American troops were killed, and Patton investigated the attack and theft. This allowed Montauk to operate without any government funding.
yep, absolutely. Yeah, that's the same thing that I understood too, for sure. Yeah. So, yeah, it's pretty cool that we actually have, and especially Paul, that you you know all these guys. Moray King also knows Al Bielak. He met him as well.
This is
So
Al Bilak on the Philadelphia experiment, the one who traveled to the supposed to have traveled to the future.
Yeah, he
Yeah, it's
came
very
through. Yeah.
amazing.
yeah, that's so amazing. Absolutely
He had
amazing that we
said
met
that
him.
there was a one of the things he had said was that there was a third world war in the 21st century from the future when he went to the future, and that he said that after the war they got so sick and tired of human rulers that they put the AI in charge. And when
Ooh,
he was in the future, the
that's
cities are
right.
floating cities. I think it's the 23rd century or 25th century. They're floating cities, and everything was run by AI. And you didn't have to work. You could work if you wanted to, but most people didn't work. They just
So
let's.
thankfully that timeline is no longer. That
You're saying that's one timeline. It doesn't
that's
necessarily mean it's the timeline that we're on now. So
exactly that timeline is gone. One of the things that happened back in 2021 when the Galactic Confederation of Worlds and the Cedars came back is they set everything on one timeline, and that was because all these other timelines were how the deep state was getting around all of these things. But once they set everything on one timeline, they basically got rid of the problems essentially, right? So we'll talk a little bit more about that next time. We'll do another. So we'll jump into the
I think
book and
also
then
Dolores Cannon said we are now, before she passed away, she said now we're on a better timeline than we could have been. We could have been like much worse timeline. I think it was
exactly.
with the some work that her communications with what's the name of that psychic from the Middle Ages, Nostradamus, with her, because she did deep hypnosis and she was communicating with people through her subjects in hypnosis, and she
Okay.
communicated with Nostradamus. And through the communications, she said, "We're now on a better time. We could have been on a much worse timeline than we are now. We're on a better timeline now, whatever."
Yeah. And I fully agree with that. And I think the one thing that's really important here is first, there's not going to be a third world war. And second, we're not going to allow AI to run us. We're going to use our consciousness. It starts here, you guys. We have
Yeah.
to. We cannot allow AI to run us. We're much smarter than we think we are, and we just need to use our noodle
Yeah, but
essentially. Right?
the ETs that use AI, that they don't, the AI doesn't run. They just use it as a tool. They don't
Exactly.
they don't get run by AI, sort of thing.
And
Not that
and
they
their
run by,
AI,
it's not that they're getting run by AI. It doesn't necessarily. I mean, with the one that Bielek was talking about it, he didn't want to come back. He liked it there so much that he wanted to stay. So it's not necessarily that it's
I,
bad, but it's
I,
better. It's better that humans run it. What is what you're saying? So
well, yeah, we have to. And the other thing is, we're talking about Al Bielek's. Wasn't he connected with the Wingmakers somehow when
yeah,
he
the ring
went?
makers were the programmers that designed the AI. And they said
Oh,
these AI, they're floating cities. The AI basically ran everything. And he said that he met with the wing makers who had designed the AI, and
right.
they said it was impossible. They could perform feats beyond a mystic. And he said it was impossible for them to lie. But they found one of them had lied and had to dismantle it. And
Oh,
he said that if people had a fun time, they could do whatever they wanted to do. They didn't have to work if they didn't want to. And he said that if you had done a misdemeanor, like you done something wrong or misdemeanor, you went to see the AI. You took on this, you had this radiation suit. They went to see the
wow.
AI, and if they thought that you were beyond help, they would just terminate you on the spot. But
Thankfully, that will never happen. That's why the timeline got changed, essentially, right?
but not
And
that
and it
not that this is the. I mean, he said it was a very happy place, so there weren't many misdemeanors, and there weren't many people who were
but
way out of order. But
but AI is still
he
running
just
it
said,
though.
yeah, but this is kind of more anyway. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, he said from our Felix point of view, he thought that it was amazing place. He thought it was much better than the 1940s where he came from. He
Well,
said he didn't want
definitely,
to
yeah,
leave. They said you have to go back in time. He wanted to stay there. He's having such a fun time.
yeah.
Um,
Interesting. Cool. Okay. Well, let's end the recording, and then we can have more of a discussion about
and
everything.
also, one of the things he said when he spoke to the wing makers, he said to them that there was, I mean, everything was very wonderful and everything, but he said there was a downside to all this AI running everything and people having lots of leisure time. He said when humans didn't have challenges in their life, they lost meaning in their lives when they didn't have challenges.
Yeah.
Exactly. A little work never hurt anyone, is what I'm going to say. And I mean physical work, but also mental work. That's why we can use it as a tool, but we don't need to rely on it. And the other thing I'll say is in the secret space program, the AI is 1,500 years ahead of what we have now. So it is probably much safer. And that's what they use, the extraterrestrials and everyone else uses. So it's not the stuff that we have now. We know that a lot of the stuff that is ran now is from the deep state. And that's also why we always try to put these warnings out about stuff too. So, okay. Any other comments or?
Well, I think just on that line of, the human evolution and that if, yeah, if everything was real easy and nobody have to work, society would quickly devolve,
Exactly. Yeah.
we have to move forward. And then the whole transhumanist idea of all the superpowers that they want to say, well, put a chip in your head and do all these things. We're fully capable of doing all that. And that it's the counterbalance is like, that's what we have to realize as humanity is that we could do all those things that they say and more. And if we ignore that side of it, that's the balance that's happening right now.
Yeah, exactly. And you're absolutely right. The one thing that I didn't say at the beginning of this is I physically teleported twice. So we are absolutely capable of these things without even technology. And I also know someone else that did it, not physically, but did it by bilocation 3 times and twice in front of me. It happened,
It
right?
reminds me of the golden. If the golden age was around about 10,000, 12,000 years ago, people are living in one with nature. The golden age is when everyone's a mystic, everyone's a yogi and a mystic.
Yeah.
So they said,
Yeah.
oh well, people were living in caves at that time. Well, Buddhist monks live in caves, yogis live in caves, Buddhist monks live in caves. So there were some cities and towns like Atlantis, but most people were living at one with nature, and they could perform. People could like as the golden age is the spiritual age.
Yeah.
So people could sort of like people could yogic fly and teleport naturally, teleport, telepathic, and
Yeah.
manifest objects.
Yeah.
They
And
say
and
carbon dating says, oh, they only lived 20, 30 years. Well, carbon dating is not accurate enough to tell us that.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
It can't say, it is unreliable, not reliable enough to tell us that.
And all of those things that you just described are actually you can actually go back to EVOs or charge clusters and understand that they're the mechanism to make all this stuff happen.
Yeah.
So that paper was given to me because of what you guys said. It's non-local, so everything is in time space, and that's where the magic happens,
And also
essentially.
with the Arbelik story, he was saying that some people who didn't want to be part of the system of the floating cities in AI, they lived in communities they lived in the countryside in communities, those that didn't want to be part of it. Anyway, just as to tell the rest of the story. But
Yeah.
so in the albino
Cool.
story, those who did, there were people who didn't want to be part of the floating cities and the AI running things, and they lived in communities in the countryside. All right, so
Cool. All right. Well, yeah, let's stop the recording now if everyone's
okay, thank you everyone. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Cheers, bye.
yeah.